Hello, I'm back and you're here. Okay, so hopefully I left off in the place where I think I'm going to, because I'm recording this module on Chapter 8, the perfect or pure competition discussion, before having done the preceding one, which you will have gone through via my lectures before you see this video. All right, so hopefully this will look like something, and backwards here on the graphs. Hopefully this will look something like the last graph you saw, where I was talking about competitive and naturally competitive or naturally not so competitive. Well, you see, sorry about the small hieroglyphics of it here. You see where my one visible finger is there, where it says P min equals AC min. All right, so in other words, the minimum price is the minimum possible cost per unit of production. And competition will typically drive the price down to as far as it'll go. All right, so we can use that to tell about how much a firm will produce. Okay, so you see at the bottom there, the little Q star. All right, so Q star is the quantity, lowercase letter, for a firm's production when a firm produces at price P minimum declared by the market. Okay, declared by the market is a big deal here, because you see the key feature of purely competitive or perfectly competitive is a salute to the market. Okay, the firm in a purely competitive marketplace is a price taker. Okay, that's the salute thing. Okay, you want to sell the stuff, that's the price you're going to sell it for. You can't sell it for more than that because it's widely available from competitors for exactly that same price. All right, so you just say, okay, well, that's the going rate. Do I want to be in business at that price? Fine. My only choice then is how many am I going to produce? So I'm going to keep producing up until my marginal costs are just barely offset by the price. In the next unit of output, the marginal cost, marginal opportunity cost, will be more than price. So I'm not going to do that. Right? That causes loss. Right? We don't do that. We only produce when we add to the bottom line, or at least don't subtract for it. Now, one thing to note right at the beginning here, and which I hopefully noted extensively already, I'm going to do it again, that when we economists talk about cost, it's opportunity cost. And the opportunity cost of running a firm includes a normal rate of return on investment. So when you make a normal profit, which means zero economic profit, total revenue equals total cost. When you make a normal profit, you are making a substantial accounting profit, a normal rate of return on your investment. Okay, so cost includes more than just stuff you write a check for. I was doing this on the table. Of course, you can't see that, right? Those are explicit expenses. Opportunity cost also includes what you gave up to do something, for which there may be no records and but it's in your head. You know what you gave up to do something. Interest that you could earn on the money in the bank. Money that you would have earned if you had had a business in a different market. That's what I mean by implicit cost, on top of the checks you wrote to pay your workers and to buy machinery and all that other stuff that you have to do to run a business. All right, so back to my graph that I'm holding here on the side. It's hard to move a little, give myself a little more space here on the screen. Again, it's a video, so you can freeze it anytime you want to. Let me move my fingers here. All right, so QD, big uppercase QD, is the amount that will be demanded if the price is at the lowest price that it's acceptable for a typical firm, which means at the average cost minimum. If we compare that big uppercase QD to the quantity at which average cost is minimized, we can determine roughly the number of firms, right? So we divide the QD uppercase by the Q star for a particular firm, right down here where my finger is, and we determine that in this case we have a naturally competitive situation, right? The average firm's output, typical firm's output, is going to be a tiny fraction. I didn't want to draw it where it was really tiny, big sheet of paper, a small fraction of the market demand at that cost minimizing price, a price that's possible when costs are as low as they can possibly go. Right? What is this line? This is an average cost line that you're familiar with from the cost chapter, the previous chapter. All right. So back to that salute thing. Okay, we have our next slide. And by the way, these are all going to be posted, and so hopefully I've remembered to tell you in class and by email to print these before you watch this video, but in case I didn't, these will be posted for you to have, and I'll be showing them again in class. All right, so there's the salute thing again. Here's the market graph that you're familiar with now from chapter 3, 4, and to a lesser degree chapter 5. Okay, the market determines an equilibrium. The equilibrium price, that's the going rate. That's the price at which you can buy the product. Why would you pay more? Okay, so the firm says consumers know that. They know that's the going rate. They know they can get the product from that price from someone else, if not from me. So I better fall in line and charge that price and survive at it, or go out of business and go do something else. Okay, so a little lowercase d there, the demand for a specific firm is utterly and totally elastic. That's what this horizontal line means. It means that a little teensy-weensy change in price is all it takes for you to have nobody buying it. You can sell all you want at the going rate of P sub E, but you can't sell any for any more than that, and you'd be fooled to sell it for less than that because you can sell all you want at that price. That means that the marginal revenue for your firm is going to be constant and equal to the price. Okay? Again, the salute thing. Price taker. Right? The market will dictate the price that you as a business or as a consumer have to live with. You want to buy it? That's what you got to pay. You want to sell it? That's what you're going to have to charge. Okay? Or, yeah, you can't charge more than that. Have to charge. Yeah, you could charge less if you wanted to, but you'd be crazy. And you probably, given competitive conditions, if you charge any less than that, you'd probably make a loss. If not an accounting loss, at least not cover all your opportunity costs. Okay, let me get my finger out of the way there. You see, the graph over here, okay, is the graph for a single typical member of the X market. Okay, so again, lowercase q for market, lowercase q for the firm's output, uppercase q for the output in the market as a whole. All right, so what sorts of conditions would create a market that is, as your book says, that hypothetical useful benchmark that we call purely competitive or perfectly competitive, depending on which book you use. One calls it perfectly competitive. The other one calls it purely competitive. Okay, so there they are. Okay, again, everything's like a mirror. It's backwards, so I move it one way and it's the wrong way. It covers my face, which might not be a bad idea, right? Anyway, okay, so put it off to the side here where you can see it. Okay, so what does it take to get price-taking behavior? Oh, there goes my sheet sagging. Many buyers and sellers, right? So ponder that. Let's see, that's the first condition. Many buyers and sellers. Well, yeah. If you have a lot of competitors, okay, you're more likely to just kowtow to the price that's dictated by the market, right? You're just a small part of the overall market if there are many other sellers. Okay? Your share of the total output is so small that even if you were to shut down, it wouldn't make any difference in terms of the big Q, and therefore wouldn't make any difference to the market price. Therefore, you can just salute and say, that's the going rate. Others are making it at that price. Either I'll make it at that price, or I'll have to find some other way to make a living. Okay, so you see what it says there by my finger, the only one you can see. Slaves of market forces. Only thing you can do is decide how many to produce, right? Choose, where my finger is there, choose Q star. Get it off the Q star. Okay, that's it. So you just compare your costs to the price and decide how many to make. Marginal cost equals your marginal benefit. And your marginal benefit as a producer is your marginal revenue. The change in the total revenue when you make one more will be equal to that market clearing price. Now, to further really nail down pure competition, perfect competition, you see up here, means the same thing. We have to make a couple of other, create a couple of other conditions, key elements. Well-informed. In other words, it doesn't matter if your rivals are charging the going rate and you can't charge more if your customers aren't aware of that, right? So we have to assume that they're aware that the what the going rate is and so available for that at other places. And likewise, you as a seller are well informed and you know that it's available for the going rate, the P sub E at other places. And then you see below that, you see one that's crossed out. I'll explain that in a second. For purely competitive, okay? You have to have sellers selling identical stuff, okay? Now, if they're not selling exactly the same thing, then you get what's written down there kind of faintly. It's called monopolistic competition. So if you delete that condition, homogeneous product condition, you still have lots of competition, right? Many buyers and sellers still well informed, but the sellers are not selling exactly the same thing. Kind of like the breakfast taco market. I mean, there's a lot of places you could buy breakfast tacos, and they all understand that about each other, but some of them are better than others. They're not identical. So it's possible that given that somebody could charge a little bit more for breakfast tacos than somebody else if their customers discover, those are delicious breakfast tacos. I don't care if somebody else is charging a nickel less for them. I'll pay the nickel. This is good stuff. Okay, so when you have not homogeneous product, when sellers are not selling identical stuff, there's room for some price making, not price taking. When it's perceived that everybody's selling exactly the same thing, farmer A's wheat's the same as farmer B's wheat, etc., there's no room for that price making. Salute. Going rate for wheat is whatever. Okay, that's going to sell my wheat for. Last but not least, I'm going to raise it to make sure it's kind of down in the gray to make sure it records. The last condition is the most important one by far for creating competitive conditions, whether they be purely competitive or just sort of competitive or somewhat competitive. You haven't got competition of much of any kind unless it's possible to easily enter or exit the market. Okay, I mean, we've been talking about that already, about that every time I talk about the most important thing to learn during the semester, I'm talking about in the long run, price change provides information and incentives. Well, that isn't good for anything if it isn't possible to enter the market, if it's very costly, if there are licenses to have to get, if there are huge hurdles, legal requirements to get into a market. That's not easy entry, easy exit. And then the market ceases to be very competitive. It may be somewhat competitive still, but to have a truly competitive market, whether it be perfect or pure or even monopolistically competitive, which is what it says over here by my finger, and which is sort of a contradiction in terms. I think monopolistically competitive, yeah. We'll get into that in a later chapter, but it basically means that you have a teensy-weensy monopoly. Your breakfast tacos are different. No one else has breakfast tacos that exactly like yours, so you're a monopoly on that exact type of breakfast taco, but there's close substitutes, so it's still pretty competitive. You don't have that much market clout. All right, I'll raise it one more time. Of course, you can freeze the frame or download these slides that I'll have up on BB Learn. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that that's sunk in. Okay, and we're going to show how markets adjust. Okay, because that's basically the whole story. Is for purely competitive is they're price takers, market shifts in supply and demand at the market, change that price that they take as given, and then they adjust their quantity accordingly to try to maximize profit, which means a profit of zero. A normal profit is usually all they can get in the long run. In the short run, sure, price goes up. Price to ration out what's available goes above AC minimum. Okay, now they can make some profit for a little while, but then the market entry occurs and that drives the price back down to the minimum possible price and back to just a normal profit. Again, what's a normal profit? TR is equal to TC. That means there's an accounting profit. You're making money. You've got something you got to pay taxes on, but the amount of money that you're making between your actual expenses and your actual revenue is only enough to offset the fact that you could have been making the same amount of money doing something else, right? Offsets your opportunity costs. All right, so a little, oops, there I go again. A little view of that. Get to, why not hide my face, right? There, sort of. Look around the corner here. Okay, so you see what's going on there. There's that graph that you've seen a few times, right? There's a demand increase that drives up the price to P sub E1, okay, because that increases profitability of making X. Market entry occurs, that shifts supply from S to S2, and so what's new now is on the side we have we show how that affects a typical member of that market for X. Okay, so they're price takers before, after, and during. At first, the marginal revenue is constant at P sub E 0, and then because of the demand increase, the marginal revenue is constant at P sub E 1, a higher price, okay, and a profitable price because P sub E 0, the original equilibrium, was okay, right? They were getting by on that, so they got to be making a good profit at P sub E 1, but not for long, because that'll attract competitors. Supply increase lowers the price. I've drawn it so that X is a constant cost industry, so the original equilibrium is restored, and the marginal revenue is back equal to P sub E1, which would also be P sub E 0, which would also be P sub E2, which I haven't shown on the graph, because it's the same as P sub E0. All right, now let me go back to one of these other graphs here real quick, because you see I've got 1,000 up there on the bottom there, just put a number on it. Okay, back to this original graph. Suppose the Q star is 10. Okay, that a typical firm will minimize its cost by producing 10 units of output per time period. Well, you see with the 1,000 here, and if Q star, the little lowercase q star is 10, you see the little division over there. Okay, 1,000 divided by 10 is what? 100. Okay, so that means if the market demand, Q sub D, is 1,000, right? Here it is. Okay, 1,000 at the bottom there. Okay, and the typical firm minimizes its costs by producing 10. That means there better be 100 firms. And better be, yeah, that's how many firms will enter the market until profit is only normal, right? Barely enough to, total revenue is only barely enough to cover all expenses plus opportunity cost. All right, so again, we have this situation here. In the long run, the price will return to a level that's only barely enough for a normal profit, enough to cover all opportunity costs, which includes all expenses. All right, now again, some examples to see if it's sunk in. Okay, so you see what this, we have some numbers. And often the numbers, probably not this example, but often the numbers are my arm twist to get you to draw some graphs. Learning is not passive, learning is active. When your brain and your arm and your hand are connected doing things, when you're having to tell your arm, your fingers, your hand to do things, you're learning much more than if it's just your eyes moving over paper. So you see we have the Q column 0 through 7, and we have the P column. All the numbers are the same. Price taking. $5 must be the market equilibrium price. Firm ABC knows that no matter what output, whoops, always backwards is this mirror thing. No matter what output level they produce, their price is going to be $5. Okay? So the change in the total revenue when they make one more is going to always be $5. You see the TR column, right? Total revenue. Every time they make another one, it increases $5. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. So marginal revenue is constant at $5. Marginal revenue is constant, equal to price. Okay, and then we throw in some made-up numbers for total cost, and we can practice finding marginal cost and profit. Okay, so if total cost looks like 9, 10, 12, 15, and you see the column there, right there. Okay, then let's see, profit is maximized. Let me just temporarily cover up this column so that you don't cheat. Look at it, and I've got the numbers figured for you. Okay, so let's see, the golden rule, remember from the very first day of class, cited several times since then, the best amount of anything is where the marginal benefit equals marginal cost. Or if you can't make them exactly equal, marginal benefit's the one that's the slightly larger of the two when you get them as close as possible. Okay, so marginal revenue is constant at 5, so we expect then to make, so for a firm, marginal benefit is just their additional revenue. Okay, so marginal revenue is for a firm marginal benefit of producing their product. And so the economic golden rule tells us keep producing until the additional cost is more than $5 and then go back one. Or if you hit one where it's 5, you know not to go any further. So you put the numbers up there and you see the MC column. 10 minus 9 in the total cost column, change in total cost, is marginal cost. 12, if you go from producing 1 to 2, your total cost goes from 10 to 12. Marginal cost is over here at $2. Okay, so just subtracting the TC column to get the MC column. Changing the total cost is what the marginal cost is. Okay, so if we play that game, then the economic golden rule, we see certainly worth producing the first one, right? That added $5 to revenue, just $1 to cost. Okay, oops. Okay, second one adds another $5 to revenue, only $2 to cost. Another thumbs up. Okay, the third one added another $5 to revenue, only added $3. It's hard to coordinate here with this mirror image. Coordinate the fingers, okay? So we keep going and we say, the fifth one, just barely worth it. The tie goes to the business. The tie goes to a thumbs up to make that product. Why? Because we define cost to include a normal rate of return. Okay, so the fifth unit, which adds $5 to revenue, going from 20 to 25, adds $5 to cost, going from 19 to 24. Okay, that's a thumbs up. We're going to do that, right? Because that $5 of marginal cost includes a normal rate of return. There's some accounting profit in there. Okay, so we do that. Well, how about the sixth one? No. The sixth one adds another $5 to revenue, right? But it adds $6 to cost from 24 to 30. You're $1 worse off for making the sixth one. The economic golden rule says make 5. So let me ask you a couple questions here based on these numbers. Okay, you can, of course, you can freeze the frame if you want to ponder it before I move on. Is this firm in long-run equilibrium? What's long-run equilibrium mean? No incentive to leave the market, no incentive for others to enter it, just making a normal rate of return. Well, it's pretty close because the maximum profit is $1 above opportunity cost. Okay, so they're making $1 more than a normal rate of return. There's barely an incentive for outsiders to come into this market. So on the exam, I'll make it a little more obvious. Here, it's a pretty close call. I'm doing that below the screen, you can't see it. It's a pretty close call. Okay, but barely there's an incentive for market entry, so the price will probably come down a little bit from $5. Okay, so 5 is a kind of profitable price. You can make a little bit more than a normal rate of return at $5. So you'll get this effect, I'm only showing half of it, right? Where the marginal revenue equals price will go down with market entry. Let me ask you another question. Are these numbers for the short run or for the long run? Okay, these are the thought kind of questions. They're not hard. Short run, what does that mean? It means there's some sunk costs. What is that? $9 is the sunk cost here. That's how you tell it's short run. Okay, at Q0, there's a cost. There's no cost to produce nothing in the long run. The short run there is, right? You got to be set up. So for example, if you're set up and ready to go and you say, you look at these numbers and you scratch your nose a little bit and you say, nah, I'm not going to produce anything. Well, you're out $9. Okay, because you were set up to go and that costs something. Now, if it's the long run and you're thinking, should I get into this market? And you say, nah, you didn't lose anything then, right? Because you didn't set up, you didn't get ready to go. All right. So let's see, what did we learn out of this graph? Oh, I can move my fingers now and you can find out where the maximum profit was. You see the maximum profit is 1. Oh, it occurs at 2 places. Remember the tie on the 5th unit, additional cost, additional benefit, means we go for it because cost includes a normal rate of return. A lot of examples about that on the homework and exam. So it doesn't sink in quickly. Something about total revenue equals total cost doesn't seem normal and it doesn't seem okay. But if you define total cost to include a normal rate of return, that's an opportunity cost. And it does make sense. But you got to work at it to get it to be intuitive. So you're not tempted to pick some goofy answer on the test just because you're viscerally opposed, can't relate to total revenue equal total cost being either good or normal. But in competitive it is, even if it's not purely competitive. Competitive means it's free entry, easy entry, easy exit, and so price is going to go down until only a normal profit's left, okay, through entry typically, or if things are going badly, through exit. All right, another numerical example. And there it is. Again, you can download it from BBLearn or just freeze this slide and stare at it a while. Okay, and so if this were well, I'll show it again in class. If this were in class, I'd leave a long pause, but I won't, because you can freeze this and you create your own long pause. The question is, a couple questions. Which of these three firms, G, H, and J, I skipped I for some reason, which of these three firms, maybe more than one, is purely competitive? And which of them, purely competitive or not, can expect additional competition? Which of them is in long-run equilibrium, if any? How do we tell? Okay. Well, we know the only thing a firm can choose to do if it's purely competitive is to decide how many to produce. And looking at this, I guess maybe I should have used a lowercase q here, because here we're clearly talking about how much each of these firms is going to produce. Okay, so again, just to practice reading the numbers, that 70 right there says that it takes 70, that firm H realizes $70 in revenue if they produce 5 units of output, right? So let's see, 70 divided by 5 would tell us their price, right? 70 divided by 5 is 14, right? So total revenue divided by quantity is price, right? Price times quantity is total revenue. Divide both sides by quantity, you get the price. All right, and then the like the 120 way over here that I'm almost covering with my finger, kind of right there. What does that tell us? That tells us that firm J has $120 in expenses and opportunity costs for producing 5 units of output. Okay, so back to my question. Are any of these three firms, maybe more than one? I guarantee at least one is. Okay, won't guarantee that on the test. The answer might be none of the above. But here one is, at least one. Okay, which of these firms is purely or perfectly competitive? Okay, and regardless, purely competitive or not, are any of them in long-run equilibrium, or are any of the three firms likely to see some additional competition? Let me give a hint here. Let me go back to this graph. Oh, let's see, not that one. Keep the numbers up here so you can look at those. Okay. That's a purely competitive firm. Their situation looks like the graph with the lowercase q on it. Can you detect this here for firm G, firm H, or firm J? And I'm not going to have the long pause because I know you can freeze it, so let's just go right straight to the answer. That slide that tells you what price taking means says that a purely competitive firm has marginal revenue equal to price and it's constant. Okay, well, let's go through these. Firm G, okay, total revenue. Marginal revenue is the change in the total revenue. So marginal revenue is 10, 9, 19 minus 10 is 9, 8, 27 minus 19 is 8. That mirror thing again. I get struggling to get my finger to go where I want it to. 34 minus 27, the change in the revenue when you make 4 instead of 3, is $7. Okay, and then for the fifth one, for firm G, 40 minus 34. Is the marginal revenue constant? No. Okay, so it's not constant. It's definitely not equal to price, right? So firm G, not perfectly, not purely competitive. Might be competitive, right? But they've got some price making ability, because this says if they produce a little less, they can charge a little higher price, right? The price when they sell one is 10, right? $10 of revenue, quantity's 1. They must have sold it for 10 bucks. But to sell 5 for firm G, it says they've got to charge 8, right? 40 divided by 5, 40 divided by 5. Total revenue divided by quantity is price. So that firm is clearly a price maker. By withholding quantity from the market, they can charge a higher price for what's left. Now, when I look at the TC column And it doesn't have anything to do with purely competitive or not, other than it maybe gets to the minimum point, the minimum average cost at a low quantity, right? I'll go back to that very first graph. Sorry, they're starting to get out of order here. Yeah, here, the very first graph that I showed, right? It says that the average cost minimum is reached at a low quantity. So maybe maybe if you looked at this and said, oh, the average cost got to a really small quantity, yeah, this firm is probably competitive. You get several brownie points to question protest on that basis. You're really thinking, although you might have thought your way out of the right answer by being a little overly thoughtful. That's one of the dangers of a principles course, is when somebody really thinks hard and gets past this stuff we've assumed away, they can talk themselves out of the right answer. So protest. I'm shaking the table. I don't know if that showed up in the video. It got blurry there for a minute for me. Protest. If your brain is ahead of principles and you got it wrong because you thought of an exception to the way that it is when you assume away most everything, which is in principles, protest. And I'll have a big smile on my face when I award your points back. Sorry, it does take a little bit of extra work to have justice when you're ahead of everybody else. Okay, moving on to Firm H. Let's see, the total revenue, Firm H, okay, 14, 28, 42, it's changing in $14 increments. Marginal revenue is constant at 14. Let's make sure it's the same as price. 70 divided by 5 is 14. 56 divided by 4 is 14. 42 divided by 3 is 14. It's purely competitive. Price is equal to 14. Marginal revenue is equal to 14. It's constant. Signature. Purely competitive. Marginal revenue equals price, and it's constant, in this case, at $14 for Firm H. Okay? Now, look at just quickly for Firm J. Not. Only Firm H is purely competitive. What's the marginal revenue for Firm J? Okay, 24, 22. See, some of you are thinking, where does the 22 come from? 46 minus 24 is 22. That's the change in the revenue when you make 2 instead of 1. That's what we call marginal revenue. All right, so just from that alone, we can do one more. 46 to 66 is 20. Marginal revenue is going down. It's not constant. Okay, Firm J flunked the purely competitive test, which they're glad to flunk. They'd rather not be total price takers. They'd rather have a little control over their price based on the uniqueness of their product. All right, so only Firm H. Now we can go over those other questions about long-run equilibrium or expecting additional competitors. Firm G, what's the largest profit that they're going to be able to make? Oh, let's see. The largest profit they can make is 0. Again, either at Q is equal to 2, 19 equals 19, or Q is equal to 3, 27 is equal to 27. Again, you're thinking, that's not good. And I'm thinking, well, it's not great. If you're Firm G, it's good for us, society. They're only making a normal profit. It's okay. They're in long-run equilibrium, right? There's no incentive. If Firm G is typical of its market, there's no incentive for anybody else to jump into that market and compete against them. There's also no incentive for, huge incentive at least, unless G finds a market where profits are above normal. But if there's no incentive to go into some other market that's in long-run equilibrium, profits the same. Okay, so G is in long-run equilibrium, probably. And of course, principles we're simplifying. How about Firm H, the purely competitive firm? Just because they're purely competitive doesn't mean that at any given moment they can't be doing okay. We see that the marginal revenue equals marginal cost, which is 14, or doesn't exactly equal it. Comes pretty close. That Q is equal to 4, where revenue is 56, okay, and cost, including a normal rate of return, is 54. $2 economic profit. So Firm H can expect some market entry. The $14 price that prevails, right, 56 minus 42 is the same thing as 56 divided by 4, 14. The $14 price that prevails right now in one of my other slides here as I look off to the side. That $14 price is like the MR1 equals PE1 in this graph from that previous slide. It's profitable for an efficient firm, so there will be market entry. So the long run equilibrium price in firm H's industry is probably a little bit below 14. Not much, right? Because it won't take much price decrease to get this revenue to be equal to the cost, but it'll take a little bit. How about firm J, which we know is not purely competitive? Yeah, they're doing pretty well. Let's see, where does marginal revenue equal marginal cost? Marginal revenue for the first one is 22. Marginal cost is 20. 36 minus 16. Okay, so marginal revenue is a little bit more. Let's see if we can get a little further. Here we've got marginal revenue is 20. And marginal cost is, 24. Nope, better off right there. Okay, Q is equal to 2 maximizes profit for firm J. All right, and it maximizes profit with a percentage-wise a pretty hefty profit, right? 46 versus 36. $10 economic profit. $10 above and beyond covering opportunity cost and getting a normal rate of return. So firm J, unless there are entry barriers keeping others out, firm J can expect some additional competitors. It may never become purely competitive, probably because they're selling slightly different stuff than people making similar stuff. But there's going to be some market entry unless there are entry barriers, and so the price is going to go down in firm J from whatever it is for any given quantity. Okay, again, let's figure out what that price is just to get some practice. Okay, firm J can sell 1 unit of output for $24. To sell 2 units of output, they've got a price at $23, right? $46 revenue when Q is equal to 2. Okay, 46 divided by 2 is 23. And then 66 divided by 3, that's 22, right? So that's how we get the price. Total revenue divided by quantity. All right, we've got to get into some of that other stuff that's in the book, namely when do businesses consider shutting down? Okay, well, let's take a look at this set of numbers. And I was just looking at exam number 2, making that up for you. And I guarantee you there's something that looks almost identical to this. Beware, it's not identical. The numbers are a little bit different. Okay, but you figure out what's going on here, you'll do well there. Let's start with something that's kind of easy, but maybe you'll draw a blank on it. So we don't want to do that on the test. Okay, how low will the price go if these numbers are typical for the firms in firm XYZ's industry? How low will the price go in the long run? Okay, now again, I know you can freeze this, and you should if you want to think about it a little bit, because I'm just going to go straight to the answer, knowing that you can freeze it and think about it a little bit first. I don't want to yak here while you'd rather be silenced with the frame frozen. Okay, so hint. Let me go back to here. What determined how low the price could go? Okay, my hands are covering it up a little bit. What determined P min? It's equal to, I'll let you read it. Okay, so here we go. How low can the price go? And the answer is AC minimum. And so ATC and AC, that's the same thing. Stick a T in there, average cost, average total cost, same thing. Okay, well, look at the ATC column. How low does it go? Right, let's see, 40, 37.5, 36.4, 36.25. That's the lowest one. Competitive pressures, entry into the market when the price is at profitable levels will drive the price down until it goes to 36.25. Okay, any price below that is not sustainable in the long run. Okay, and any price above that will draw competitors. Okay, maybe not fast and maybe not a lot, but any price above 36.25 says, hey, firm XYZ's industry is drawing above normal profit. Okay, so let's get in there and get ourselves some of that while it lasts. Firms will probably understand that everybody else is thinking the same thing. It might not last very long because it's going to get more competitive. Okay, so as you should be doing, let's do some what if. Remember, there's 15 possibilities there, right? So I'm only going to go about 3 or 4 of them, Okay? You can do the rest of them for what if. Okay? And we know that purely competitive firms maximize profit with marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. Price is the same thing as marginal revenue for pure competitors only. Okay? So if I say, what if the price is, and give you a number, you would just say, okay, well, we'll just keep producing more until the next unit costs more than that price, and then we won't produce that one. Right? Price equals marginal cost, or as close as possible, with the price being the larger of the two, will dictate the firm's profit maximizing choice for output. So let's choose one. Let's see, I'm going to cheat, look at my notes for what our choices are going to be to illustrate what I want to illustrate. No, I cheated, I checked. What if the price per unit, that salute thing, the price taking price, what if that is $26? You double check again, make sure I got the right price. Yep, $26. Okay. Now, one possible source of irritation is, well, why would the firm produce anything at all if the marginal cost is more than $26? Well, you have to recognize here that the marginal cost is going down. Okay, so if we make a match here and we say, oh, they're going to stop here, marginal revenue, the price is 26, they're just going to stop at 4. If you match up marginal cost and marginal revenue, which in this case is price, if you do that and say, there it is, economic golden rule, I did it. If you do that where the marginal cost is going down, what you've just done is maximize losses. You don't do that. Okay? Okay, so for example, if you just keep producing while your marginal cost is more than your price, your marginal revenue, and then you stop when you're finally about to make some money, right? Marginal cost now is less than the $26 you're going to get on each one. Remember our what if the price is 26? Okay, so be careful. Point my finger here at the screen where you can see it. Be careful. Do not match marginal revenue and marginal cost where the marginal cost is going down. Unless the marginal revenue is going down and it's not going down as much. Not happening here. Purely competitive chapter. Marginal revenue is constant. It's equal to the price. I've just told you, what if the price is $26? Okay, so go down here and you say, okay, those first few, I want to get past those because those are just losing us money. Can we make any money? Oh, the fifth one. We're going to make $6 on that one, right? Marginal revenue is $26. Costs $20 to produce that additional one. The sixth one, $25. Oh boy, that's close. Just barely worth producing with the price at 26 at an opportunity cost of 25. Okay, so one more. No. The seventh one adds $30 to cost. If the price is 26, you go, So the best you can possibly do with the price being $26 is to make 6 units of output. Now, that 6 units of output might not do it for you. In other words, you might say, if that's the best I can do, I ain't doing nothing, right? Because that's always a choice. Okay, and by the way, this is short run data. Doing nothing is going to cost you $50, right? Total cost, quantity is 0, right? $50 cost. Okay, so your criteria then is, wow, if I can at least lose less than $50, I'll stay open in the short run. Maybe call it a day and get out of here in the long run. But I'm getting back some of that $50 setup cost if my losses are less than. But if it's more than, if your loss is more than the $50, in other words, if producing 6 at a $26, if that loses you more than $50, what that means is you're not even getting your operating expenses back. I'm not going to do that. Unless you expect some dramatic change in the price or your expenses. If that's a constant, you're going to say, no, mistake, eat the sunk cost, walk away, turn the sign around, shut down, gone. Okay? So, general principle. If the price is not enough to cover your operating expenses, which has a fancy name sometimes from last chapter, average variable cost. If price is below average variable cost, wave goodbye and leave. Shut down immediately. If the price is above average variable cost, but below average cost, okay, including all costs, sunk costs, everything, you hang around in the short run, but probably call it a career in that business in the long run, right? Because you're not covering all your opportunity costs. If the price is above the average cost, well, then you celebrate for a while, but expect additional competitors and expect the price to be pushed down, in this case, eventually to 36 1/4. Okay, well, let's just test real quickly on the shutdown or not decision. If the price is 26, the best you can do is to produce 6 units of output. Sorry, I'm not pointing in the right place. 6 units of output, right? Because the marginal cost right there is just right there, real close. The 6th one just barely worth producing. But again, you're covering, not only covering your opportunity costs for that 6th one, you've got $1 left over. Well, so that's the best you can do. How good is it? Well, let's see. The total revenue will be the $26 price times the 6 units of output. Let's see, what's 6 times 26? I should have written that down here. Let's see, 6 times 26 is 156, I think. That's right, yeah. Just double check in my head one more time. 6 times 20 is 120. 6 times 6 is 36. Yeah, 156. Okay. So you see the total cost is given for you. Okay, 156 minus 225, what's that? That's your profit or loss. Whoops. The revenue of 156 isn't even close to the 225 cost. It's bigger. That loss is bigger than your $50 sunk cost. At a price of $26, you're not even covering your operating expenses. You're not even getting any of that $50 back. Gone. Shut down. Price is below average variable cost. Quit now. Again, unless you expect some dramatic improvement in the conditions that underlie these numbers. Okay, so there's your one what if, and we'll go. That's a tough one. We'll go over that one in class some more. Prepare your questions. I don't always end, just because I've been doing this for 30 years doesn't mean I anticipate all the questions that are in your brain and what about it troubles you. Okay, I anticipate some. All right. So some firms shut down. Maybe you're not the first. You see the price starting to creep up because other firms left. See, that's what's going to happen here. I'll get back to my graph. Yeah, this one. Okay, as some leave, right, the marginal revenue equals price will go up for everybody that's left. Okay, so suppose you hang in there until the price stabilizes for whatever reason. Go with me, assume that it stabilizes for a while at $31. Okay, how many are you going to make? $31. Okay, you do the same thing here. And don't stop here, right? Because that's where the marginal costs are falling. Ah, there you go. My middle finger, no double meaning intended. Right? The 31, the 7th unit of output is just barely worth making. The 8th unit of output is not. The 8th unit of output would add 35 to your overall costs, including opportunity cost. And you're getting $31. The price-taking price that you must accept is our what if, $31. So you say, okay, I'll make 7. Okay, or 0. That's always the choice. Remember, 6, it was, okay, I'll make 6. That's the best amount I can make other than 0. Is it better than 0? No. When the price is 26, it's better to make 0. How about if the price is 31? You can either make 7, right, because that's where marginal revenue comes as close to the 30, marginal cost comes as close to the 31 marginal revenue as possible. So you make 7. 7 times the 31 is our total revenue. Let's see, what's that? That's 7 times 31 is 217. Okay, see, is that right? Yeah. 7 times 30, and then, yeah, so, okay, 217. And our total cost, which you can read from the table, is 255. We're still in the red. There still isn't $38. Ah, but the $38 is less than that 50. So we're getting all of our operating expenses back and $12 of our sunk cost we're recovering. So at $31, above average variable cost, but still below the minimum average cost, we're at least getting some operating expenses back. We stay open in the short run. If things don't further improve by the exit of others, maybe, then we quit in the long run. Okay? Well, you can't raise your hand now, can you? Oh, well. next time. Next time when we see each other face to face. One more. Cheating, double checking just to make sure I'm properly prepared. What if the price were 41? Okay, again, kind of following our scenario. You're tough. You like being in this business. You're losing a little bit of money. You cry over it a little bit, grit your teeth, and you say, I'm hanging in there. I'm not quitting. I don't know if the screen vibrated again. Maybe it did. Okay, I'm going to hang in there. And so you do, and you're rewarded for it. Enough other people leave, and so many maybe overreact to losing a little bit of money in the short run or in the long run that the price climbs up to $41. Now what are you going to do? Well, comparing to marginal cost again, you make 9 now, right? The 9th one adds $40 to your overall expenses, including opportunity cost. Barely worth making when you're getting $41 each for them, but worth making. Now, even if the price is $40, it would be worth making, right? Because that $40 includes a normal rate of return. But no, not making 10. Additional cost, $45. Selling it at $41. No. Okay, so let's see. How are we doing when we do as well as we can when the price is 41? We're making 9. 9 times 41 is 369. Oh. Making 9. 41, the what if price. What if the price is 41? That's what got us here to the 9. 41, not 40. 41 is the what if price. 9 times 41 is 369. Oh. We hung in there. Cool. Whoops, my thumb is up but off the screen. We're making $39 of economic profit now. Okay, pretty cool, huh? Right? Well, darn, the market is brutal because it ain't going to last. Right? The fact that you're now making your firm XYZ, you're now making an economic profit at a price of 41 means that some of the people that just left, given easy entry, easy exit, will say, wow, I should have hung in there a little bit longer. I kind of overreacted. I'm going to jump back in there. Right? And the price is going to go back down. That'll be back to this graph, right? Where the supply increases because of profitability from S0 to S2 in the market. Okay? And then the marginal revenue equals price. And the other graph goes back down until, well, in this case, long run, things will bounce around a little bit, but eventually stabilize at 36.25 as the long run equilibrium price. All right, just to kind of wrap things up here and connect with the previous chapter, here's what's been going on. Okay, total revenue is kind of a straight line, right? Because it's the constant price times quantity. Total cost does that kind of wavy thing here. There's a fixed cost in the short run, right? What was it, $50 in our last set of numbers, right? Fixed cost here, Q is equal to 0, TC is 50, right? So this would be the 50. Okay, and then it sort of goes up steeply at first, and then it flattens out a little bit. This is the total cost now. And when the total cost looks like this, which it typically does, the average cost will look like that. Okay, and the marginal cost will be equal to the average cost. Just reviewing stuff from the previous chapter now. The firm taking the market price as given, right? See the little E here, P sub E, marginal revenue is constant equal to the market equilibrium price. Based on that, they will find where their marginal revenue, which is the same as the market price, equals marginal cost. And then they'll come down here. Oops. They'll come down to where my finger is, the only one you can see, the index finger, to choose Q star. That's what we just did with these numbers, with our 3 what ifs. Our 3 what ifs, 26, 31, 41. What we were doing, had we graphed these numbers, I recommend it. Graph these numbers, okay, and you will get something that looks like that. The marginal cost line will be kind of bowl-shaped, and but it'll be kind of a tilted bowl. The average cost, see, make sure that you read this, short run average cost in there. Marginal cost equals the average cost at the average cost minimum. You can see that's drawn there, and then marginal cost, marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Dictates the quantity choice, the only choice the firm has. How many are they going to make? Okay, I guess the other choices it has is be efficient, because being efficient means you might earn a normal profit in long run equilibrium, otherwise you're going to lose money. Be efficient, but really the only choice they have other than being as efficient as they can, is how many are you going to make? Q star, where marginal cost equals marginal revenue, right over there where my finger is moving in the wrong direction each time first. One of the things that it talks about at the end of your chapter is how efficient it is to have very competitive conditions. So I'm going to toss this up here, even though there's really not a whole lot of deadweight loss to discuss in chapter 2, but because once in class, probably more than once, we've talked about deadweight losses several times, but at least once in class so far I've said that all deadweight losses are the same, where you are versus where you should be. Okay? Where you are is the Q apostrophe. Where you should be is the one that maximizes gains from trade, the Q star. Most of the time it's the market equilibrium. Okay? And then Q prime results from taxes or price controls. Okay? So then all deadweight losses have, and then at Q prime, where you are, then you look at the marginal benefit and the marginal cost. Okay? And you got your triangle, so don't forget to divide by 2. Now I see from the time that I'm at 4 5s. Well, a little past that now. Each second ticks away. I love 5s. I was born in 55. Anyway, I didn't use up the whole hour and 15 minutes. But if it had been normal, there would have been Q&A, and so we're gonna have that next time. I strongly recommend you watch the other videos as well. They're shorter. They're a lot shorter than this one. So give those a look, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.